Your Excellency, Karibu Sana Geneva, and all protocol observed, and all Kenyans, hamjambo. My name is Alan Lemantile. I'm here in Geneva, where I work with the WHO, but I'm not here in the official capacity, but I'm here as a Kenyan. So my question is about, I remember one time you were talking about Kenyans investing in terms of the PPP for Jomo Kenyatta. Under that, we find it like the Eurobond, the cap is very high. For example, it's $200,000 to invest in the Eurobond for Kenya. While in the States, the Treasury is $1,000. Anybody can invest in it. So I would like maybe the next Eurobond, if it can come lower, to accommodate everybody and all the diaspora, for example. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Chris Mburu, and I work for one of the UN agencies, the Human Rights Agency. I'm heading Africa work there. And this organization is actually one, to start from where you stopped, it's one of the organizations that's looking for a host country agreement with Kenya. Because that is where I wanted to start to say that Kenya has a very, very big name internationally. And we are highly, highly respected. And there's always this thing I've worried about, because I've been around the world, not representing Kenya, but representing an international organization, the United Nations, of which Kenya is a member state, an important and respected member state. This incongruence between the fact that we have this big name at the Security Council and now the Human Rights Council, by the way, congratulations on being elected there. Kenya carries its weight, and Kenya gets listened to when it talks internationally. But there's an incongruence. And on the other hand, many people, many international employers will tell you if they had their first pick, they would get Kenyans. Kenyans' work ethic is highly valued, highly recognized. I have been working in Central Africa for many years. I just finished a stint as resident coordinator in the Republic of Congo. And people used to come to me, and before that I was in Rwanda. People used to come to me, businessmen, and they say, I wish I could just get a Kenyan to run my business. I know of a country that I shall not name in East Africa, in East African community, when it was time to hold an event that it could not fail in, they went quietly, recruiting Kenyans in every hotel, every transport business, everything to make that a success. That is how much we are valued. But this does not translate itself in Kenyans in high positions in these organizations. So there's something missing there. We are not pulling our weight. We have small countries who we have trained ourselves as Kenyans, but they know how to play the diplomacy. They have USGs whenever they want. They have people at very high positions whenever they want. So really, at the foreign policy level, I really think you need to engage with, like a select number of Kenyans in the international organizations and see how to develop, cultivate that talent. One of the mistakes I can tell you that we make in Kenya, we wait until Kenyans have reached a certain stage and then we try to help them. Others start cultivating earlier. A P3 and a P4 should be on your radar screen. How are they developing? How can we help them in the future? But when you wait until the competition comes to the ASG level, you've already lost. So it's really, really important that we carry our weight. One last thing I'll say, and I'll say to the Kenyans as well, because I'm one of the Kenyan francophones, is that we need that French. You saw what happened in Addis. We were together, Your Excellency. But this is a problem that does not need a Band-Aid. This is a problem that needs to be healed in a long-term manner. Think about 20 years. Think about representing another Raila in 20 years who will be able to speak to the heads of state in English, French, and maybe another language, Swahili, which is part of our. So again, this is something that we can look at, think outside the box, aggressively teach French so that we can compete at the international stage and especially in Africa where French is leading. Thank you.
As the mic goes to number 3, please, we don't have a lot of time. PCS has got 2 other engagements, I believe, before he closes his day. So let us extend back the grace. Keep them short and sweet so that we can have good answers. Thank you very much.
Mtaniruhusu nitumie lugha ya kitaifa. Maanake sisi wote tumekongamana hapa kama Wakenya, na changamoto ambayo tulijipa Wakenya ambao wanaishi hapo gaibuni hapa Uswizi, kwamba tujaribu kukuza lugha ya Kiswahili ili watoto wetu waweze kufuata huo mtindo. Karibu sana waziri wa mambo ya masuala ya nje, balozi wetu wawili, asanteni sana kwa kuandaa kongamano kama hii. Mimi si kulalama wala lolote, bali ni kuwapea kongole. Manake tumeanza kuona mambo yakianza kwenda. Unajua mali kuna mama dada zetu wanafanya kazi haraka kuliko sisi wanaume wakati mwingine. Huduma zimeanza kuja karibu na sisi, tumekuwa tukilalama sana. Tunajua kwamba hapo mwanzo hizi ofisi mbili zilikuwa pamoja hapa, lakini kulingana na utendakazi ilibidi zigawanywe. La pili, ningependa kuomba kwamba mmezungumza sana mkatupa kongole kama Wakenya, manake tunajituma na sisi ni wachapakazi. Mimi na hudumu OHCHR, na hata ndugu zetu wa Afrika wanakuangalia wanatuambia kwamba nyinyi wa Kenya bwana mtatuambia siri yenu. Kwa hivyo tunajivunia, na kwa hiyo tunaweza kuhakikishia kwamba hatuwezi tupa uzalendo wetu. Ingawaje kuna mambo mengi kule nyumbani, we are still proud of our country and we cannot give up on it. Kwa hiyo ningesema eneo bunge la ugaibuni imekuwa kubwa sana. Hapa Uswizi tuna changamoto wa kupiga kura. Tunajua lazima tupigie kura executive. Tunatumwa kule Berlin, ni mbali. Tunaomba mtupatie kituo cha kupiga kura moja ama mwili hapa Switzerland ili tuweze pia kuzungumza kutokana na haki yetu ya kupiga kura. Ni hayo tu, asanteni.
Your Excellency, protocols observed. My name is Mokaya Gichana, and I have, I think, 2 questions and 1 comment. Number 1, how safe are we as Kenyans? Because based on the information reaching us, now Kenya is a host to rebel movements, which I remember during Moi time, it never used to happen unless we were hosting Africans who were fighting against colonialism. And we were a neutral country, basically. Question number 2, under which law, international law, are we hosting those guys? Because now, clearly, we are enemies to the Sudanese. We are enemies to our friends, our families from DRC Congo, Sudan, and elsewhere. Number 3, that's a comment. I want to disagree with my brother there that we need French. We don't need French. French is a dying language. We need Swahili. And this is upon us. We need to rally as a country, as SADC, as Africans, to make Swahili as a 7th UN language. By us having Swahili, we already have a head start. Look at the countries which speak Swahili. Yeah? SADC implemented Swahili as an official language, and they are teaching Swahili in those countries. Southern Sudan also, and a few other countries. So, yes, those are my few words. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. As usual, you're given a finger, you take a hand. A lady needs to ask a question. Otherwise, the 2 ladies will not let me rest.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. All protocol observed. My name is Maureen Wanzala. I work at WMO, the World Meteorological Organization. So I thought I should just ask this question to represent the young generation as well and the ladies. My first question is, I am a climate scientist, so I will use that as an analogy. In the backdrop of climate change deniers, you have just given us an overview of the international policy and how you are going to mashinani. How is the government helping the young people in terms of literacy, in terms of this international policy literacy? What people get, for example, the young people, is what they see on the news, what is displayed on social media, and the social media is a very good platform to sort of get this information out there. And what we will see on the social media, or what the young people will see the social media, because that's where they are most of the time, that's what will get into their heads. So how is the government helping to raise the young generation in terms of building this foundation, not only in international policy, international law, but helping them to build the literacy around that?
Thank you very much. Sir, over to you. Okay.
I think we'll do some around here. Your Excellencies, fellow Kenyans, hamjambo. My question to you, Your Excellency, is on civic engagement. I would add to what my brother said over there, that we need those electoral clinics to help our young generations to be able to actually apply for those positions, to be part of the electoral process in the diaspora, as well as to be able to engage in our civic duties as diaspora as well as Kenyans. So what are the active measures do you, in your knowledge or your capacity, would you be able to help us to achieve this function in the diaspora?
Good evening, Your Excellency, and our dear ambassadors and fellow Kenyans. I have a comment, maybe it will also be a question. So in terms of JKI and other ports of entry, I'm wondering how you are planning to improve the customer experience in terms of, because a lot of us, when we come, it's difficult, especially sometimes it takes maybe around 1 hour to get through the customs and other entry procedures. So I think improving on customer experience can really be able to help to even increase the number of tourists that we get, because I know that's the aim of the government at the moment. And the other aspect also, I know you're doing a lot of things in terms of share and affordable housing, but I think at the bottom of it is in terms of income levels. So if there's a way that the government can push and improve the business environment so that the employment rates can go up, so that people can have income, so that they can be able to pay for the share and other statutory requirements that are required. I know you have a very long public service. I know from 1993 you've done a lot in terms of, I remember when you were the Minister for Finance, you were able to introduce, to remove price controls and things like forex exchange controls. So I think improving the business environment will be able to really put pesa kwa mfukoni ya watu, so that they can be able to meet their needs and also be able to support the government in whatever plans they are doing. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe I'll start from the last one. I actually did not introduce price controls and exchange controls. I actually dismantled them. Yeah, I removed them. because there are obstacles to business and so forth. So the idea was to liberalize the economy. And the issue of customer experience is important. We continue to tackle it. For instance, there's the ETA that is being introduced. And we've done it for 1 year. It started with teething problems, but it's getting better. But for whatever it is worth, earlier this year, the UK announced that it was now introducing the ETA. That means we were ahead of the UK. Okay? This year, South Africa has now announced that they're going to introduce the ETA. Ladies and gentlemen, you make serious moves, but you underrate your own potential. You're always ahead. So the ETA thing is now catching on with other countries. Imagine when I say you're even ahead of the UK, who are now starting to introduce the ETA. But in terms of the customer experience, the largest challenge we are facing is we've analyzed this and we are trying to improve the issues. We still need to invest more in equipment so that the issue of the customs and how they handle people that come in, we should be able to tackle that. Because in the last assessment meeting that we had, this came up quite strongly, and the complaint is largely around people's suitcases being opened and so forth. So we are trying to look at how, through equipment improvement, we can minimize that. But ladies and gentlemen, I came to Geneva, and at the airport, let me tell you the truth, I had to remove my belt. I had to put my jacket on the side, and it had to go through the process. Even me, as Prime Cabinet Secretary, I did it. I didn't argue, because it's a requirement, and I know it's a requirement here that they inspect your body. You hand over your passport, they look at you. Not Geneva, but at Amsterdam. Yeah, you go through the mill. And why do people go through the mill? So, as I say, we need equipment that will X-ray bags more and maybe develop more lines to help people. And that is the basis of what we are talking about, modernizing Jomo Kenyatta Airport, because it's long overdue. The method that was being used was wrong, and that is why it was stopped. But the need to move forward and modernize JKIA remains a must, and it has to be done urgently. You are travelers by the nature of your job, and you will admit now that whether you went to Zanzibar or to Dar es Salaam or to Addis or to Kigali or you went to Accra or Dakar, all these airports are being modernized. We have to do it in Kenya. The difference is this. In Kenya, the scrutiny levels are higher. Lazima ufanye public participation. Lazima, kwa sababu katiba inasema ufanye nini? Public participation. So the gestation period and the process takes much longer. And there is also a lot of litigation that we go through. But to be honest, the earlier process had pitfalls, so we have to go back to the drawing board. But the necessity of improving the airport, we must. Therefore, we must package our investments, whether it's under PPP, because we can't use the exchequer. Things are bad from that perspective. The competing requirements and needs of Kenyans are that we have to find a different approach to fund some of the infrastructure that we have or that we require, including Jomo Kenyatta Airport. And that's why we are looking at the PPP angle, or even a joint venture. And that's where I was talking about the bond. If we package an infrastructure bond properly and engage with you based on the fact that the diaspora is giving us almost 4.3, now it's 4.9, the latest $1 billion on an annual basis as remittances. So if we package it well and we make it attractive, and it's in the right tranches or packages, then we can get more investment, which can help us develop some of the infrastructure. And that is where we are going, so that we can raise capital from different, make it attractive, what kind of tax arrangement do you have on those bonds and so forth, so that the return is better. I don't know what the interest rate is here if you put money in a bank here. Maybe it's what, 2%, 3%? Yeah? You can tell me, because I don't even know how much you have in the bank. So I'm only talking about the less than 1%, isn't it? Yeah. So you can see if we packaged it better, and you're earning maybe 5% or even up to 8% or something in such a bond, then it becomes okay. And if it is guaranteed that it has to be we de-risk it in different ways, then it can become an attractive investment. And this is what we are trying to do, so that we can improve some of our infrastructure. So I was just bringing that to also answer part of the question that you had. I cannot argue more with Mburu. We were together. I'm one of the people who never took language seriously. That's why I can't speak French, but I had an opportunity to speak it from class 5. But I didn't see the value then. We were not being taught why it is important. But in the primary school I went to, of Nairobi City Council, Nairobi Primary School, one of the lessons that we had when I was in class 5 was French. Yes, that far back. So we have some very serious work to do in getting people to appreciate the languages. It's better now, realistically, but I think we need to really now show the importance of this, so that we can have our younger people correct what we were unable to do, and take advantage of those opportunities. I've had the issue about the voting. It's a function of resources at the end of the day. If our resources are enhanced and we are better off, we are likely to be able to open more polling stations. But that, remember, constitutionally, is for the IEBC to determine. I cannot. Because once the IEBC is allocated resources, or the resources are appropriated, then they can factor in how many other stations in the diaspora they can have to allow people to vote. So we cannot direct them. But we can help them through the budgetary process, have the resources they require, but then they determine, based on data and what have you, which other. So it is a progressive undertaking, but it makes sense. Are we safe? We are safe. By the way, in 1998, unfortunately, there was the bomb blast in Kenya. Not too long ago, we had attacks in Garissa. Okay? And we were having attacks in Garissa because terrorists struck. We had attacks in Kikambala at the coast. Okay? So what I'm trying to say is that, and by the way, if you go back in history, Norfolk Hotel was bombed. See? We also had the bus what do you call it? OTC was bombed. Westgate, Dusit was hit. So let us not mistake peace initiatives for that. I'm just trying to prove to you that it is not about the peace efforts that we see terrorists striking. Okay, they have different motives. They strike for different reasons. But we are safe. And Kenya keeps on working hard. That is why we worked so hard to work with Somalia. They didn't have governments at one time. But the factions were being brought together systematically until it evolved into a situation where the election is there, and now we have a government in Somalia. So it's peace building is a process. Okay? And we need to recognize that. So it's not about saying that we are against one faction or the other. Not too long ago, in fact, end of January, the third week of January, the Sudan foreign minister came from Port Sudan to Nairobi to have a conversation in Nairobi. Now, there are these other people who are having a conversation. When we talk about the Nairobi process, as an example, led by Uhuru Kenyatta as facilitator, the Nairobi process was about inter-Congolese dialogue, which means talking to M23 and others. That is what Nairobi process is all about. Okay? Talking to the different factions, M23 plus others, talking to them so that as Congolese, there can be inter-Congolese dialogue. And the Luanda process is dealing with the interstate dialogue. But these two processes are mutually reinforcing. So you have to talk to them. So clearly, if you go to the Sudan issue, you will find that Bashir created two generals, Burhan and Hemeti. Then things went sour. The civilians in Sudan wanted to change things. Then there were pushed aside by the generals. And then the generals eventually fell apart. And that is where Sudan is today. So these people must be brought together so that they can talk, and the carnage in Sudan can end. And therefore somebody must somewhere open channels of conversation. It's not about liking who or the other. Even the people that were talked to in the Somali issue, they're not there now, but it was a process. They started the process, they were phased out, some through natural attrition, and then others come in. If you go back, you'll find Mzee Jomo Kenyatta making the first steps on matters of Angola in the very early days, and then building it up to. So dialogue is the key. No military solution will solve this. So I hope I've responded adequately to this. We will continue to have this. We are hosting the South Sudan process, different functions, including those who are against Salva Kiir. That is the one you call the Tumaini process. Yeah? We are trying to bring out the holdout groups, the ones that do not agree with him. We are trying to get them onto the table so that they can agree, so that South Sudan can have peace. So this is the premise upon which, but we have no common border with Sudan. All right. So it's not anything that you can say we can engage directly. We have no common border. In the issue, in the aspect of DRC, the economic bloc of East African Community and SADC have met. They have agreed to a process. They have recommended it to the Peace and Security Council of the African Union. In the process of making it known to the Peace and Security Council, the Secretary General of the UN was present in the Peace and Security meeting. He knows what was adopted. So basically, it has received even the concurrence of the African Union and the UN Secretary General, that there has to be a collective effort to bring peace in DRC, which includes talking to the warring groups. By the way, Kenya's embassy was burnt in Kinshasa, and our fellow citizens had to be evacuated, and they're operating from a neighboring country. Okay, it's not easy. But I'll tell you, for the first time, that even when we talked to the government of DRC, they have never even they have not extended an apology to the people of Kenya. Okay, and if you see the clips, you can see that it was an aided activity. Because the people who are supposed to protect were there when these guys were going in and causing damage. So there are certain issues that we don't have to pick kelele huko nje. But it's sometimes they say he who seeks equity must also come with clean hands. So there are certain issues that you may not know, that we may not talk about in huko. You get what I mean? Huko Mululu. I have to be very careful that we don't. I think the WMO, I think you have some very good points. If you can help us, especially on that foreign policy that I said, please share some of your ideas around here to see whether they have been appropriately captured or not, so that as the sessional paper is being completed, we can capture some of the areas about communicating the dissemination of this and what kind of platforms we can use. I think that would be helpful. Sijui kama nimekosea kitu kingine. To I get you. It's the threshold of it's something that one can look at, so that you can have more people participating in the okay. So it's a valid point that these are issues that we can look at, so that it becomes we might raise more money actually, and such it opens up much more. The famous haba na haba hujaza kibaba. Yeah, so I hear you. Okay, I think let me end there, ladies and gentlemen.